Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll hear inspirational stories of heart-centered leaders who have awakened to their higher purpose and taken that leap of faith to follow their heart and make an impact in the world. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with your host, Jennifer Spohr.
Really overjoyed and just super excited to welcome as a guest to the show today, Jennifer Longmore. She is a forensic investigator turned international business strategist and money mindset expert, a sought-after media personality, 10-time best-selling author, and creator of the popular Empire Expansion Program and Heal Your Money Story certification. For over 15 years, she's been helping people remember who they really are through over 30,000 life purpose sessions, including the who's who of actors, professional athletes, CEOs of leading companies, and other influential luminaries. She is recognized for creating a six-figure enterprise within the first 10 months of launching her coaching practice, and has gone on to create an eight-figure enterprise and coaches empire builders to do the same. Through high-level private and group coaching programs, Jennifer's innate ability to visualize the entirety of your business and find your hidden jackpots can yield instant returns of more than 1,000% is unprecedented. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I know we're going to have so much fun because we have so much love for each other, aside from the fact that we share the same first name.
I know. I love it. I love that it's also Jennifer, and I'm just beyond thrilled to have you join us as a guest, especially during this time of great awakening that we're experiencing on the planet. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. With that being said, we will just go ahead and jump right in. We would love to know what inspired you actually to do the work that you're doing today. The impact that you're making is just beyond amazing.
Well, I could answer that in a lot of different ways. I think that because this has always been a calling for me, I knew this at age 2, 3, somewhere around there, that I was meant to be doing this. Now, of course, I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I did know that I was going to be doing something around helping humans live in their fullest potential and, share their purpose. And when I was working in forensics, I lived for the weekend. And if anyone has done that, and I imagine most people listening have had that experience of living for the weekends, cramming your whole life into a weekend, and then dreading Monday morning. Usually the dread, I think, would set in around mid-Sunday afternoon. And I'd kind of grieve the loss of my weekend and go and hit the pavement again. And because I was a public servant, I was making just enough money to get by, or not quite enough money to get by, depending on the month. And between having massive adrenal fatigue and living for the weekends and not really being remunerated the way that I honestly should have, and really many jobs like that, deserve far more pay, I thought, oh my goodness, if I have to do this for another 40 years, I don't even know if I'll survive. And I don't mean that in a melodramatic way. I really felt like my soul was dying. And I truly felt like I barely had any energy, right? My vitality had been completely drained. And I actually loved what I did, but I didn't love the way that I felt. And I realized that, there had to be a better way. I didn't know what that was. But I started meeting some entrepreneurs that were doing things that I had already been trained in, like Reiki and other things like that. And because I saw other people doing it, it gave me permission to at least start researching what that would look like. Now, fast forward to the last few months, my depth of conviction of purpose has deepened immensely. I really thought that I was passionate about my purpose. But once the Great Awakening clearly showed up and knocked on all of our doors, I went into a depth of conviction for helping people that I didn't even know I could muster up.
I can really relate to everything that you're saying when you talk about how you felt, going back to your job every week. I reached, that level prior to finally taking the steps to make a career change, although it took me a bit of time. Like so many other people, we have this fear of change, but at some point, I feel like our conviction and our purpose, or that call that we're feeling to make a change, exceeds that fear, essentially, of moving forward onto a new path.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people, simply because I've spoken to so many people, are feeling this immense pressure, but not pressure from other people, just this feeling like, wow, this is bigger than me. Something bigger is going on. And I feel called to participate in a way that is a contribution. And for some, they just don't know how to get clear on that. For others, they don't know how to feel safe enough to do that, right? To be visible and put themselves out there, or take the leap and trust that the net will catch them. But I can't think of anyone I've spoken to that doesn't feel this pressing need to really show up and serve in some way.
Absolutely. I find also that, some people maybe hold back from taking action as quickly because they have beliefs in terms of questioning what's possible for them. I'm finding that, there are a lot of people stepping forward into their purpose that are actually meant to create something new, meant to actually birth something new into the world. Mm-hmm. Which I feel like makes sense with this change that we're experiencing.
Yeah, for those of us in business that have service-based businesses, most of us just need to amplify our message. Some people do need to pivot. It depends on whether people had a physical location or whether there's just not a demand for their offerings, not because they're not amazing offerings, but because people are really looking at what's truly essential right now. And everyone, is going to view it differently. For me, for example, I've been incredibly busy, and I'm grateful for that, but way busier than I imagined. I really thought that my business would see a significant decrease because people would be looking at what's essential. And because I do offer spiritual guidance and trainings and so on, in fact, people clamored to that because I think most people had an existential crisis. Most people wanted to either get clear on their purpose or to really make sure that they were expressing their purpose fully, and also to make sure that their business was really a tool for activism and a tool for change.
I've found that to be the case as well. Jennifer, every experience in our lives shapes who we are. Is there an experience in your life that you feel has been most significant in shaping who you've become today?
Oh boy, how much time do we have?
Well, just go for it.
Well, when I was still in university, I'm one of these people, I'm a quick start and I'm a quick follow through. I like to move at the speed of light. I like to be efficient. So back in university, I was working 2 full-time jobs and I was in school full-time, but I was taking way more courses than I actually needed to because I was trying to speed up my graduation. Because I did a combined degree, the total for my undergrad was 5 years, but I was really trying to do it in 4. And I had done the same thing in high school. So I thought, well, I'll surely be able to do this. But apparently when you're working 2 full-time jobs and going to university more than full-time, it's not really doable. And I share this because I had no time to myself. I was literally bouncing from one expectation to another. And for those of you that have gone to school and had a job at the same time, you know that when you're at work, you're always thinking about how much studying you have to do or the paper you have to finish, or, it's just, and then when you're doing your papers, you just cannot, they're never perfect. You can never research enough for them. You can never proofread them enough. You can never, add enough quotes in them. So there's always this lack that's swimming in your field. And so anyways, the day that I had the car accident, I was in a rush. I wanted to get back home and see my my boyfriend at the time and do my laundry and, all kinds of things. And I got delayed. Someone had parked in front of my car, so I couldn't leave for hours. So I was seething. I was so mad. And looking back, of course, I can see how I was prevented from being able to leave sooner. But anyways, I got sideswiped by a truck doing about 120 miles an hour on the highway. Everyone was going, or kilometers, everyone was going at the speed of whatever. And my car just spun out of control. And that was a metaphor for my life. So when people have car accidents, I always like to hear about what happened, not because I'm sick, but because the car is how we get through life. It's how we drive through life. And it's very, how the car ends up being impacted and so on can be reflective of what's going on. And my car spun out of control. And that's what was happening with my life. But I couldn't even see it because I was too busy to see that I was too busy and the impact that that was having on my health and so on. So my mom was really good friends with a woman that did Reiki, and my mom did reflexology. And because I was on a very limited budget as a student, my mom said, well, let me do a trade with this woman. She'll do Reiki on you. I'll do reflexology on her. And that'll help speed up your healing. Because of course I was in a rush to get back to life, right? I was mad. I was mad because even after the accident, I'm like, oh, this is so inconvenient. I can't work. I can't do this. I can't, whatever. But the car accident was significant because it deepened my faith. I had a lot of crazy things happen on the drive home in the rental car that were pretty mind-blowing. But the Reiki is what gave me the language to all the intuitive stuff I'd been doing my whole life. So I got to bridge both worlds because I think they're both important, having the intuitive side and the energetic side. And at the time, I was very busy with school, but my Reiki master said to me, I think you're meant to study Reiki. And I would push back hard because in my mind, I was thinking it was going to involve textbooks and studying and taking a test. And, I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't have anything else on my plate. And she said, you'll know. And sure enough, I think the night before I was like, oh, my guides are bugging me. I think I'm supposed to be there. So I showed up, and within 15 minutes, I didn't know anything about it and I hadn't even been exposed to it, but within 15 minutes out of my mouth, and we've all had this experience, I call it like a frog jumping out of your mouth. These words come out that I was going to learn how to teach other people to do Reiki, that I was going to become a Reiki master. And sure enough, within about a year, I did. And that was huge because I believe that Reiki can be a real gateway drug for healers. I joke about that, obviously, but I think it's a great opening, and it ends up clearing the way. It ends up clearing out our chakras and kind of clearing a path for our divinity to step in and clarity of purpose to step in. And it starts pointing us in the direction of what we're actually meant to study. And shortly after that is when I started doing Akashic record readings. I didn't even plan on doing that. I didn't even have terms for what I was already doing, but the Akashic records kept knocking on my door, so to speak, in my dream state until I finally asked what it was. And then I got clear. And so now all these years later, I have an Akashic record training school. And as you know, I've done tons of readings and so on. So I would say that that car accident, although we tend to think that those things are poopy things in our life, right? And we want to be resentful of them. It really was a huge gift, and I'm grateful for it every day.
Wow. I'm trying to come up with something to say. I mean, that's... I can appreciate the synchronicity, though. It's crazy how there is actually some symmetry in our paths. I was in an accident several years ago when I was living back east. My mom was out visiting me shortly before she died, and I haven't actually shared this publicly, but we were hit by a drunk driver doing 70 and a 30. And I always thought that that was a lesson around, kind of like a reminder that I needed to be more present, because I was very similar to what you were describing yourself as, in terms of just always kind of like thinking of those things as an inconvenience, rushing around, always trying to get ahead and thinking about the next thing. And then when I started studying Reiki, I already had these gifts, but then it really did serve as a gateway
Mm-hmm.
to the healing. It's just so interesting how we have, we're very different, but we have similar experiences.
I love sharing stories because I feel like we all have far more in common than we realize. I really do get that we all have different experiences based on the color of our skin and our ethnicity and our religion and, socioeconomic status. I definitely recognize that there's a lot of things that shape us, but at the end of the day, just from a human perspective, we all bleed the same color and we all want to be loved, accepted, and respected. And we all really try to protect ourselves from abandonment and rejection. And on a cellular level, we're like a billionth of a degree, separation from each other as far as our actual, biological makeup.
On that note, in regard to, all of the events that have been unfolding the last few months, I really see it even more so how we are all one, despite being so different, and despite how painful and just, horrific some of the things that have been and are, that I feel like real change is coming in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. The Great Awakening was inevitable. It's something that has been talked about in a variety of religions, but particularly in astrology. And when I say this, I don't defer all of my power to astrology. I still feel we have free will, but there are certain influences we know are present. And astrologically, this Great Awakening was inevitable. It just was. Whether we want to lean into it or whether we want to pretend it's not happening and kind of put our head in the sand, which I know is very tempting, believe me, it's happening. And so we can get dragged along kicking and screaming. We can be a participant in the conversation or we can lead the conversation, but the conversation's happening regardless. So who do we want to be during this time? And in this Great Awakening, any systems and structures that are not aligned to the new paradigm of where we're going are going to be dismantled. People want to have all kinds of theories about what's happening right now in America with the situation with Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, all the stuff, right? All the narrative that we know is going on, the civil unrest, the tearing down of statues that quite honestly should be. Like, I'm all for architecture and I'm all for preserving, historical pieces. And I also can see why it's not everyone agrees with it, right? But I can see why we really shouldn't have any statues up and revere them and holidays as well that are celebrating people that actually were a huge part of an oppressive history. So naturally, there's many things that are going to need to be dismantled over the next 4 years. That's how strong this influence is for 4 years. So for anyone that's thinking this is a sprint, it's not over. COVID is just one of many, many chess pieces, I'll say, in this unraveling. But we need to dismantle any financial systems that are corrupt and based in oppression, which we know they are. There's a huge disparity in the distribution of wealth around the world. We know that we have to dismantle oppression. And so that means we have to look at race. We have to. And we have to look at ethnicity. We also need to look at any corruption and disparity in religions. And of course, we're going to be looking at education and how accurate history is and what we're actually teaching kids and what we're conditioning children for and how we're programming them. And every part of our system, every part of our infrastructure is under a magnifying glass right now, which is great. It needed to happen. And as light workers, we brought light onto the planet, which inevitably was going to bring the dark to light so that we could heal it, right? But it's also very disruptive. Holy schmoly. It's, even for those of us that thought we could be prepared for this, it's a lot. It's a lot to digest at once because we're processing so much.
We really are. But it's so true that, in order for the healing and sustainable change to happen, these things have to come to the surface. And so things often look and feel at their worst, right on the cusp of a breakthrough, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
there are a lot of people out there, even more so than prior to these events, taking place, that are at a crossroads, feeling called to step into their light, to make a bigger impact. What advice would you have for those people to be able to take action in that direction today?
Well, things always start with us. I really recommend that we are gentle with ourselves right now, because there's a lot of judgment about what we should be doing, and questioning, am I doing enough? I'm not doing enough. I'm doing too much. There's just a lot to process. And the shame and the guilt and the pressure and the buying into lack, I'm not enough, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, all of those things are not really going to be in service to our third eye. And they're definitely going to drain our energy. So we're going to feel less vital, right? We're going to feel less vibrant, and then we're not going to feel as clear. And so we'll end up chasing our tail. So the greatest gift we can do for ourselves is to get clear on, what do I want for myself? What do I want for my future? It's hard to plan for a future right now, because we've been forced to be in a holding pattern. And knowing that they're going to keep dictating the conversation. They're going to keep us feeling, or they're going to attempt, I should say, to keep us feeling futile, to keep us in an existential crisis, to keep us feeling like we're in a holding pattern. So we have to be extra vigilant in deciding what our future is going to be. We need to harness the conversation and decide how we're going to be a contribution to what's going on. And then from there, in the clarity of that, we can start taking actions that feel aligned and make sense. And no action is too big or too small, because at the end of the day, whatever we're doing and however we're showing up, we have to be able to live with it. That's always been my filter for my decisions. Can I live with this? Can I sleep tonight if I say yes to this decision or no to this decision?
That's such fantastic advice. I'm thinking, do I have anything to say to that? Our environment always impacts us, but one other thing I wanted to add is that, especially right now, really being cognizant of what we're exposing ourselves to. Because even if it's, whether it's TV shows, especially media, that can really take more of a toll on us energetically than we may realize. I feel like it's important to, as far as news and media is concerned, I feel like it's important to stay informed, but not obsessed. Don't mindlessly scroll.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to be mindlessly scrolling, because the headline, there's a lot of money. Oh, so much money being spent on both sides to NLPs, neuro-linguistic programming, to hook us emotionally with captions. Memes have captions, articles have captions, and because we scroll, we'll read a headline, because that's our attention span, and they know that. And then we'll buy into the narrative based on the headline that we read. But if we actually click on the article or click on the video, we'll find that, in fact, it has nothing to do with the title. But there's a lot of energy being spent on manipulating us. There's a lot of just politically within the US, for example, which is sort of the epicenter of what's going on in the world right now, right? Because everything that happens in the US impacts the rest of the world, because the US currency is so strong, and the US buying power is so strong, and so it affects trade with other countries and so on. So we're all watching what's happening. But the political parties in the US have a very, very vested interest in spending tons of money. I saw this even when I worked in a credit card company, which is a whole other conversation. But I know how much companies pay to study and work out the math and figure out the algorithms of what people do and why people do what they do. So Facebook has been doing research on us, for example, for many years. They know what we're going to click on, because they have the AI to do that. And so we've allowed ourselves to be very predictable. in what they can put in front of us. That's just with the politicians, right? What they want us, how they want to use our brain as a ping pong, right? And kind of confuse us and send us all over the place. But then there's also other countries that have a vested interest in keeping the US very divided. And I think we can agree that the US is very divided. And this always happens. As an outsider, every 4 years, I see that up until year 3, people are fine with each other. They're cordial. Little spats online. But all of a sudden, the year of the election, poop hits the fan. Every possible contentious issue that you could possibly imagine gets brought up and creates an immense amount of division. And then for about 3 to 6 months after the election, things are still pretty heated, and then they sort of calm down. And then about a year before the election, they pick up again. I watch this every 4 years, more so than in any other country. So sadly, they know that. They know how to divide people. They know the topics that are going to really poke at people. And they also know how to introduce new topics like masks, for example, and have people literally ready to rip each other's hair out over a mask, a flimsy, disposable object that people never considered. None of us ever considered having to have conversations about a mask on January 1st. We couldn't have even fathomed that we'd be talking so much about a toilet paper shortage and masks and why people are wearing them or not wearing them. But the same principles were applied. And right now, in the Great Awakening, one of the very strong astrological influences is that it's a mind control period. So it's a period where we're dismantling ourselves from mind control and creation of illusion that we participated in, sadly, for a really long time. We've all just been victims of it. And I'm not one that uses the word victim loosely, but we all have fallen prey to some ill-intended agendas that have been going on for decades. And then we also are very susceptible to mind control. And we can see that happening if we just watch what's happening on social media, especially the forums or the platforms that are highly engaged. A place like LinkedIn, you're not going to see it as much. It's a little more reserved and sort of buttoned up over there, right? It's a little more business and business casual over there. Whereas on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, it's a lot more emotional and relational.
Well, there's been some more activity going on lately.
I really want to love LinkedIn, but I gotta say it's a code I haven't been able to crack.
You know, it's funny because I love LinkedIn. It's like my number one go-to place. One of the things I love so much about it is just the level of engagement. But anyways, yes, there has even been more, kind of activity going on over there. So to kind of summarize, the biggest difference that a person can make, individually toward the collective is to be clear in their own conviction, in their own vision, and in how they want to move forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And having the willingness to take
an interesting time. Yeah, I think there's a few things that we're naturally forced to face right now. We're all experiencing the same world event. We're just experiencing it differently. So when people say we're in this together, no, we're not in this together. I have a lot of privilege. I have privilege oozing out of my pores. So my ability and my freedom to speak truthfully is very different than other members of society. And I have the financial means to not participate in a lot of the nonsense.
Yeah, the point.
But what we all are being asked to release is not everyone's going to wake up. So the first thing is we have to release our attachment to people waking up and the judgment we place on that, because not everyone came here to be a part of the new earth. They came here to prepare the new earth. Some people came here to prepare it and usher us through. Some people came here to prepare it. They're not meant to wake up. They're not meant to transition with us. And that can be hard to hear on a 3D level, but on a spiritual level, we can respect the fact that everyone chooses the path that they do for the ways that they're meant to grow and contribute. So there can be a sense of urgency of, I've got to wake everyone up. And I would say, yeah, still share whatever your truth is, but it doesn't, also don't take it personally if you feel like you're doing everything you can and people aren't waking up. The second thing we're all releasing is really shifting our relationship with time. I think over these past few months, we've all had this feeling of what day of the week is it? What year is it? What month is it? Right? We're really reconfiguring our relationship with the time and space continuum. And as a result of that, one of the gifts is that we're really mastering the concept of life is a bunch of moments that are strung together. We literally get to be present moment to moment because we never really know how many more moments we have. And within that, then we're having a different appreciation of the people in our lives and things in our life, really reevaluating our patterns of consuming, patterns of distraction, and all kinds of things. And then the biggest thing that we're all being asked to look at, and many people are highly resistant to this right now, for the people that are waking up, is that we've really had to get into right relationship with authority. And many of us feel like teenagers right now that are being asked to really lead up and lead out, because although we were functioning as adults, right, we're making bill payments and we're making our bed and we're doing laundry and we're buying groceries and we're, maybe picking a hobby and whatever, right? We're living a day-to-day adult life. We got very accustomed to abdicating our power and abdicating our decision-making for the big things to mom and dad, which is government, metaphorically. And so we thought that mom and dad could take care of the big decisions. We would just pay them a portion of our salary every year, and they would act in our best interest, and they would make decisions that really served us and that we could trust them, because they told us that we could trust them. So of course they were going to act in our best interest. And what we're really coming to see is that if we're going to get through this, we have to lead ourselves. And even while people are waking up, they're still trying to give their power away to me, for example, or to you, or to other healers and other people in positions of leadership, rather than saying, hey, how can I link arms with this person and create something with them? They're still wanting to abdicate. And this is going to be a huge downfall for each of us personally if we allow that to happen, because we're going to end up repeating the same patterns if we're not willing to release the pattern of abdicating our personal power, because we came onto this planet with immense power. And part of our journey in being here and discovering our purpose is also to discover our power and our potency.
100,000 trillion% everything you just said. It's so true. So many of us are conditioned to look externally, outside ourselves for the answers. But the truth is that, our soul has the answers. We have the answers within. Yeah. We just have to learn how to recognize that as guidance. And I think a lot of people do, tap into that guidance, but what holds them back is their lack of trust in themselves. Especially
we have been perfectly socialized for that. We get sent to the doctor. The doctor knows better than us as a kid. We get sent to school. The teacher knows what's best for us. The teacher will decide what we're going to learn. The teacher will decide whether we're learning well enough. Our parents will decide what we should eat, what time we should go to bed, what our hair should look like, who we should play with, what toys are suitable. Everywhere we, police, always be kind to the police. And yes, in theory, these things are all true. And there's a degree of direction that needs to be provided to us when we're really young, but we also get really programmed at a very young age that people in authority know better than us and that we should abdicate decision-making to them. And that's the biggest part of the fallacy and why we're where we're at. And that's by no means making any of us wrong, because I certainly was within that matrix as well and had to take the red pill and choke on that red pill.
Yeah, really I was too. I was a chronic people pleaser. I was like, I didn't even really know who I was when the fog started to lift, It took a lot of inner work and kind of rediscovering myself, to figure all of that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really want to just reiterate that we don't want to make ourselves wrong for that, because that we were being programmed at an age where we were highly suggestible. When we're 3 and 4 years old, that's where we're determining the difference between fantasy and reality. That's also when a lot of you can do this, no, stop, do this, don't do that. And then a lot of the TV programming, right, for kids at that time, although there was learning sort of enmeshed in that, there was also a lot of conditioning around how we should revere authority. And then, of course, at bedtime, if we had nursery rhymes and things read to us when we're even more suggestible and in our theta brainwaves, we're going to pick up a lot of programming around, what is a good life, what we should aspire to grow up to be when we're, adults, and who should make decisions and who shouldn't.
Jennifer, if someone wants to learn more about you, to connect with you or work with you, where is the best place for them to go to do that?
The best place really is on Facebook. I have a group called the Purpose Posse for entrepreneurs that are spiritual. Doesn't mean that your business needs to be spiritual, but you're of the woo persuasion, like Jen and I. And so I spend a lot of time on Facebook. I am on other platforms, but I also have help in managing those, so you don't typically get me directly. And then I also have a free soul acceleration system on my website, which helps people get more clear on their purpose and also goes deeper into what the Akashic records are and how they can be used to get clear on your purpose, to expand your business, to make more money, things like that. So if people go to www.souljourneys.ca/soul, then they'll be able to download that gift for free. And part of what comes with that are these daily messages from the Akasha, which people absolutely love. So
I
if you're feeling
received
called to have your inbox sprinkled with a little bit of divinity every day, then that's definitely for you.
I receive them each day, and I can attest to their value. They're magical.
It's funny. My guides were so adamant for easily 6 months, but I feel like it might have even been a year. I don't have a good concept of time anymore. And I thought, I don't want to email people every day. That's obnoxious. I know they're helpful, and I know that I have to send them every day if they're daily messages from the Akasha, but I don't think people are going to want emails every day. And they're just tiny, as you know, right? They're like 1 or 2 liners, and they're not promotional. It's just like, here's your message from the Akashic records today. And but eventually I submitted and said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I got inundated with thank you messages. And I don't do it for that reason, but they really are a gift of love, and tons of people send us thank yous every single week because they love them that much.
I agree. They're valuable reminders. There's value in every message that you send. Thank you for a tremendously enlightening conversation today. Thank you for providing us with more insight into what's going on and how we need to look to move forward to make an impact. I highly value you. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored that you had me on.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for listening to the Awake and On Purpose podcast. Please visit us and subscribe to the podcast at awakeandonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can connect with your higher purpose and take that leap of faith to make your impact in the world, visit us at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.